Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. My host JP John Poz. With me today, very special guest, former All Japan Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champion. You may know him as the Golden Boy or the Dangerous One. He is, of course, Waylon Mercy, Mr. Dan Spivey. Dan, welcome in. How you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for having me.
What is going on in your world? What have you been up to?
Wow, since I've been retired, not a whole lot. I've been playing a lot of golf, taking care of myself, and just sitting back, taking it easy. And I'm in the process of writing a book about my life and about recovery.
Nice. How's that going? How's the book going?
It's going good. Hopefully, it'll be out by Christmas. That's what we're hoping for. But yeah, it's coming along good, really is. And looking forward to getting it out there and seeing about helping some people get off drugs and alcohol.
What's that experience like writing the book, putting that together?
What's that now?
What's the experience like putting this together and writing the book and kind of going through old memories and stuff?
Wow. There's quite a bit that has to go into it. The main thing is getting me to remember stuff that I couldn't remember back then. But it's been interesting. It really has. And rehashing things that happened long ago is pretty depressing at times. There weren't very many good times involved during that time, but there were some. But and just rehashing the ghosts that are out there.
When you are kind of doing that and going through it, is it therapeutic at all? Like, kind of reliving it and going through that, or no?
Well, it can. It does at times. There's a lot of the time is, hard to think about. It's been something buried for so long, and then rehashing it again, it can pull on you a little bit, So, but I'm thinking that that's all good if it's going to be able to get my word out there to help other people is what I'm hoping for.
Absolutely. And like that road for a lot of people can be tough. And if somebody as famous as you are kind of went through it and kind of lead the way, that's great for others.
Well, I hope so. That's what I'm hoping to get out there. If I can get sober, anybody can get sober. That's how bad it was.
When was it? This was like the beginning of your career or the whole career? How long was the road to recovery, if you will?
I don't think the career had much to do with it. It certainly, gave me access to some things, but I've been an addict all my life in one way or another. Anything that I like, one's not enough and 1,000's too many, as we say. And, it's just been a tough road to where it got to a point where I couldn't dig myself out anymore. I was sunk and gasping for air.
When you're going through that, right, and all that's going on, how do you kind of dig yourself out of it?
Luckily, I had some help with the WWE helped me out by sending me to rehab, and then during one of my times of being in trouble, I was able to have what we call a spiritual awakening. I had a vision to change my life and to help others. So that's what I've been doing.
Nice. With that, WWE actually will pay for it. They actually cover the rehab.
Yeah, for me they covered me about 4 times, which is unheard of. I don't know another corporation in the world that pays for guys to go to rehab. They if you ever signed a contract with the way I understand it with the WWE, you might have only just signed it and did one match. They'll cover you. And there's been several guys they covered several times. There's been a few of us.
Yeah, that's great because sometimes they get the reputation of, oh, they don't care about the wrestlers and it's just a machine, and right. I mean, that's kind of the wrong thought to have about it.
Yeah, it's I don't know, but it's a great. I'm very fortunate because of that. That's for sure. I didn't have the money. My family didn't have the money to put me through, and I was a hard case. I couldn't get it the first time, so it took me 4 times to finally, wake up and smell the roses.
When you're looking through it to the other side, that is great that you're kind of saying, if I can get through it, anybody can get through it, and having other people sharing your journey will definitely help them with theirs.
I sure hope so. That's what I'm hoping for.
Now, as far as golf is concerned, what's the handicap? How good are you? Or are you like a pro golfer out there?
No, I wouldn't. I'm a long way from being a pro golfer. I just don't move around as good as I used to after 6 hip replacements, two knee replacements, a neck fusion, 14 concussions, and 6 marriages. See if he gets it.
Whoa, geez, that's a lot. Oh my God, 6 marriages.
Yeah. I got to keep her now, that's for sure. She cracks
good.
If I make a grip, that's for sure.
Good, nice. But you're out there a lot though, right? Golfing, you're out there quite often.
Yeah, I just came in from playing Saturday. I always play on Saturday. 4 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Take Sunday off, basically. The rest up.
And you always have that.
Still train 4 or 5 times a week too.
Oh, nice. And you still have like crazy clothes, right? Like your golf clothes, if you will, right? Kind of.
Waylon Mercy. Got to be
Yeah.
Waylon Mercy out there. That's for sure.
Yes. And I love that you put the name up as Waylon Mercy too, because I feel like that's one of my favorite gimmicks that now gets more love, maybe because of Bray Wyatt. But back then, I feel like it didn't get as much love as it deserved. It was such a great gimmick.
Yeah, it's one of my biggest regrets. It really is. It's my whole career, I never got to play somebody else. I've always been Dan Spivey or Dangerous Dan Spivey. And when this Waylon Mercy came up, and me and Vince came up with the idea, it was something that just came so natural, because of my upbringing, the way I was brought up around a lot of people like Waylon Mercy. And, it was, I just couldn't perform anymore like I knew that I could and wanted to, and I just couldn't do it anymore. 2 weeks after I retired, I had my knee replaced. And that started a whole bunch of operations after that. And I just was so beat up. But Waylon Mercy, was a character that could have been really, really big. And I'm surprised of the support and people interested in me now as Waylon Mercy. It's unbelievable. And I have a lot of fun doing it. So, lives are going to be in Waylon Mercy's hands. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Great catchphrase from Waylon Mercy. That was so good. So that's you and Vince coming up with that together?
Yeah, we sure did. I brought up this fact that, about the Robert De Niro movie, Cape Fear. And that's where, everybody knows that. I think that's where I came up with the character, was that.
𝐒𝐷𝐿, if you will. Great movie, great character. Cape Fear, really, really great stuff. So interesting too. Like to turn that into a wrestling character, we have never seen that before up until that point.
Yeah, the thing is, I never had any written scripts or anything. I was just winging it, and it just was so easy for me to do it. I just thought about some of the things in my past, the people I had seen, and the acting of being just, totally off the wall it was just an easy guy for me to play. It really was.
They always say Vince never saw movies. He didn't know pop culture, but it seems like he knew Cape Fear. He knew about Robert De Niro character. Did he, or that was mostly you telling him about it?
It came mostly me telling him about it. The name was Vince's, so he came up with. I understand that that name came from a guy that used to beat up Vince when he was a kid.
Wow.
So that's what I heard. You know, I never got to confirm that, but that's what I was told from somebody. I can't remember who it was.
Wow. So Vince is thinking, possibly that he's going to have this guy that he remembers that he obviously doesn't like. And he's just thinking, like, when he was a kid, this guy used to beat me up. He'd be the perfect guy to be this bully that basically was the guy that's beating me up when I was a kid.
No, Vince comes up with some weird stuff.
Yeah, sometimes not good, but this in this case, very good. You know, he's had some misses out there.
Yes, it was good for me. Just wished I could have finished it.
What was the conversation like? Hey, we're bringing you back in. What do you have as far as ideas? And then you like collaborate on the idea. Is that how it goes down?
Well, the whole reason of me coming back in was I was working in Japan, and I'm real good friends with Jerry Briscoe, and I guess they're looking for some older leadership in the locker room, and we talked about that coming up. It was, you know, I wasn't making any money back then either. It was hard times. WCW was kicking his butt, and you know, it was just what happened. I went on I had a tour in Canada, and each town we went to that one week, they got snowed out. There wasn't any people at the shows that we did have, and it was just tough making any money and dealing with the cold weather. Me being from Florida, it was just tough, and I was hurting, and I just called. I retired. I don't do it anymore.
I love, though, as far as WWF at this point, it's kind of like crazy characters, but corny characters. They used a lot of them. You know, they got like a plumber, and they got a guy called the Goon, and they got Abe Knuckleball Schwartz. Like, you're a character, but like the antithesis of all those guys, because they were so corny and so over the top. Yours was like, this could be a real person, and this is like scaring the hell out of me kind of character.
Well, something that I learned, I don't know where I learned this from, but, you know, most of the guys come out yelling and screaming. I used to be a yeller and, you know, yelling and screaming type guy too, you know, with the crazy eye. But just the calmness of talking, you know, people don't want to listen when you get yelled at, you know, and I just talk real slow, the Southern drawl, and just never raise my voice. And that scares people for some reason. I don't know, but it seemed like it did. And it worked for me. So, yeah, you know, the yelling and screaming just gets too much.
That's why I always thought Jake the Snake Roberts was more scary than the other guys that would yell, because he just talked very low and slow and right to the, you know what I mean? He was very relaxed. So, and you were like that same way. So it's kind of scary. It's like, wow, this guy is not yelling and screaming like typical wrestler stuff here.
Funny that you brought that up, because that's where I got that from, was from Jake.
Wow. He always was like, you know, trust me. And you're like, wait a second, I don't trust this guy for a second. But he said it so low and slow. You're like, it actually was scary to a point.
He was very good at that. That's, you know, that's why I stole it.
Yeah. You got to borrow it, right? As the wrestlers say, they borrow it. So with you coming back there and doing it, who puts the attire? Like, are you just literally kind of trying to look like De Niro, or are you coming up with some of the attire yourself as far as your gimmick gear?
Vince had people doing that for me. You know, he tells them what they want, what he wants, and they do it, you know. So they did everything for me, you know, as far as that. They even found a place where, you know, I could put on these washable tattoos on you, and that was a pain in the ass doing that.
So he wanted you to have that tattoos, and you're like, all right, you know, I guess I have to, I guess. And then
I guess, you know, it I don't know. It was people loved the dagger between my eyes. This is the one they liked.
Yeah. Creepy. Very, very creepy.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing it though, I'm kind of like surprised that you said that no like promos as far as being written down for you? Because doesn't that seem like, or didn't that used to be like the Vince way for a while? Like he wants it the way he wants it. So he just told you kind of maybe bullet points and you go off and you shoot from the hip.
I don't know what he did for other guys, but for myself, he never told me anything about my promos other than he liked them. It was, when something gets over because the boys will just say it over and over and drive you crazy. Everybody's going every time they run by me in the dressing room, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? They just drive you nuts saying it all. So it's good if they're going to harass you about it. So that's a good thing.
Yes. And I love that they're kind of saying, well, this guy's, doing great promos. Let's just let him do what he does. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to monopolize it and take over it.
If it was bad, he would tell me. Believe me, he would. He never did tell me anything other than I love it, so.
Was there a difference between Vince at this period and when you were there during like the Hogan era period, when you were there the time before? Was there a different Vince here?
I couldn't tell any difference from him. I was in when Waylon Mercy came into the wrestling for him again. I was on a different level. It was more one-to-one, whereas before everything went through Pat Patterson or whoever was the booker was at the time. And this one, if I had a problem, I just went to Vince, which there wasn't any problem.
So Waylon Mercy, obviously such a memorable character. The feel of the character, that's just all you, basically, like that's not really Vince. That's kind of your creation of what you think the character should be.
I don't think Vince just gave me an opportunity, Other than that, the rest of it's mine. He just gave me an opportunity to perform, and I always appreciate that from him. People say so many bad things about Vince, and I tell you, it's not. I don't have that opinion of him because the first time I went up, I injured my neck. And I just broke into the business. So thank goodness for Mike Rotunda taking me under his wing when Barry left. And I hurt my neck, and I was having, all kind of nerve problems and stuff. I had ruptured disc. And so I had to have an operation. And when I did that, Vince paid me $500 a week to stay at home and get well. And then, about 6 months later, he let me go. So, he took care of me while I was sick. That's, I don't know anybody else in the business, a promoter that would do that.
Yeah, that's like a different side of Vince, and maybe not what people want to hear nowadays, because it seems like now everybody wants to rag on him and say something negative about him.
Yeah, that's a shame. He's done so much. And there's, back when I was there and in the early 70s and 80s, you heard all these bad stories about him. But, if you wouldn't have been able to work for the WWF or WWE, you wouldn't feel like your career was complete, because that was the number one place to work. If you want a good paycheck, that's the place to go. And, then these guys get up there and they start acting like jackasses. They get fired. And, they want to say all these bad things about him, about the buying steroids and pain pills and delivering. I heard one story, Vince delivered the pain pills himself, and that's just bullshit. It didn't happen.
That was all George Sahorian, right? I mean, I think you were involved right in that part of it with kind of revealing it wasn't Vince, it was the doctor.
Yeah, I sure was. And, it was, Vince didn't have anything to do with that, that I know of. It didn't happen. We had Dr. Sahorian, and he always showed up in Hershey, Pennsylvania, or in a place close to Hershey, and he came in with a big case, and it was steroids and whatever else he needed. I don't know if he's still in jail or not, but I know he got a lot of time, in trouble. So anyway, but Vince didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, it just feels like I think people want to make him into a worse kind of character than he was, and not give him the credit he deserves for what he kind of did for the business, which has obviously made it $1 billion company.
Yeah, he, it was. I don't know what it's just crazy. If you're successful, everybody wants to shot at you, I guess.
100%. With go back to Waylon Mercy, why you said kind of regret it? Why was it cut short? What happened? Was there more injuries involved, or what happened with the end of Waylon Mercy?
Well, I was just so beat up. I wasn't able to perform like I wanted to and knew I could. And I just didn't want to go out there and put a product out there that wasn't doing what needed to be done with the character. I wasn't making any money, and it just was time to hang it up. I was addicted to painkillers, and I just needed some help. And that's the biggest thing, was being hurt and needing help with my drugs.
And it seemed like there was so much meat left on the bone for Waylon Mercy. Like you said, people still talk about it to this day. I feel like because there was no real conclusion to it, or like there was more to do for the character, that people kind of kept it fresh on their minds forever.
Gosh, yes. I mean, that could have gone really, really a long way. It's a big regret. I wish I'd hung in there longer, because Waylon Mercy could have been something very special, and is special. I still get recognized all the time, and people appreciate it. When I kid around with them about Waylon, and it's something that got left undone. It really was. I wish they would have done something more with me and Bray Wyatt, and I don't know why they didn't do that. It would have fit in so well, and I was hoping that would happen, but it didn't.
Yeah, was that something that he was pushing for, as in Bray Wyatt? Was he pushing for that, for you to come in?
I don't know, but I'm the one to talk to him. He came to me, and this shows what kind of kid he was. He came to me and he asked me if it was all right if he did that, and I told him sure. And so I talked to him and gave him some ideas, and the guy did a great job. He really did. He really put together a great character, and it makes me feel good that he got the idea from me and asking me if it was okay. I told him, of course it is. Good luck.
So cool gimmick, but really, when you look at it, definitely an homage. Still, I mean, he was even wearing some of your shirts, or it looked like some of your shirts. You know what I mean? It looked like he was wearing your old gear at one point.
Well, yeah, it was close. It was some good stuff. I liked his outfits. They were good.
I love the fact that he's asking you. You know what I mean? Like some guys just steal stuff or take stuff or whatever. It was so similar to what you did. So I love that he's kind of old school in that sense, where he's asking you if you could use it and borrow it.
Well, that comes from his mom and dad, Mike, Steph Rotunda, and plus Barry and Blackjack. I mean, he comes from a fine stock right there. So yeah, it was pretty impressive, and you don't mind helping a kid like that. He did a good job. He didn't need much of my help. He got the ball and ran with it.
I feel like that also helped the Waylon Mercy character, because people were like, "Where's he getting this from?" And they're kind of like trying to, people online, of course, they love to dig deep now and look into things. They're like, and maybe they didn't watch WWF back then, or maybe they were too young, maybe they weren't even born yet. But like, where did he get this character from? So then it only helps further Waylon Mercy and like the allure and the aura of Waylon Mercy. It's like, oh my God, that's where he got the gimmick from. This cool character that didn't last as long as he should have lasted. So it's kind of cool that he kind of continued it on.
Yeah, it made me feel good when people, put them two and two together. It's, it was something that people really liked and wanted more.
There was a rumor online that he was I don't know how true it is, but that he wanted to bring you in for something. So I don't know if that just never came to you or that never got that far, but he did apparently want to have you in there doing something.
I don't really know. You know, we talked about it, but nothing was ever really said. He had these different characters, and one of the characters in the funhouse was a bird.
Mercy
And
the
it was
Buzzard. Yes. Yep.
and that was his little dig at me on that buzzard.
Now, did you ever do a voice, or did they ever take your voice and use it? Because that's another rumor online that they were using your voice for Mercy the Buzzard.
No, that didn't happen. No.
So it must be him pretending to be you doing the voice. That's probably what it really is, because it's him, but like in a different voice doing Mercy, and the buzzard comes out and it does a little funhouse thing.
I don't know. I never asked him about it. Didn't hear about it. This is the first I heard about it.
Wow, definitely an homage to you, or maybe even like you said, maybe he's like maybe kind of making a little joke. But yeah, it was called Mercy the Buzzard.
Yeah.
Kind of cool though, right? I mean, it's like a little bit of a hat tip, you know, to Waylon Mercy.
Wow.
That would have been even cooler if they got you to voice it. That would have been even cooler.
Yeah. It's a shame we never find out, but you know.
Yeah, man. But I do love I love the fact that it is like an homage to you, but he actually asked you if if he could use it. So that, to me, that makes it even cooler.
Yeah, it certainly does. You know, and you know, it's just his dad helped me so much early in my career. You know, I was just really happy to help his son. You know, with that character.
When you become a tag team partner with Rotunda at that point, were you supposed to be doing something else in WWF? Because obviously Barry leaves, you kind of become the U.S. Express or the American Express, if you will, with Rotunda. Were you supposed to be doing something else at that period in time, at that point?
No, I was just looking for a place to work. I just was pretty new in the business, and luckily for me, Barry left, and Ricky Steamboat had got me a job working for the WWE back then, and I just being 6'6", blonde hair, and they just brought me in to take Barry's spot, and that just worked out good for quite a while doing the American Express.
How did Steamboat get you in?
I used to train when I first started in the business. Me and Scott Hall went to Charlotte with Dusty. Dusty brought us from Florida to Charlotte to break into the business, which didn't help us much at all. That's another story in itself. But and I used to train at Steamboat's gym all the time and got to know him. And he worked out with me a time or two in the ring. And I went to Kansas City for a while to work for Harley Race. And then I came back, and didn't work out for me again in Charlotte. And Ricky took some portraits of me and up to New York, and they brought me in. And so Barry left, and they just put me in the slot with Rotunda, and he helped me tremendously, you know, as his tag team partner. We traveled on the road. I rode with him all the time. We shared rooms, and we lived together for about 2.5 years, I think. And it was great for me to learn the business, and with his help, you know, it just brought me along that much faster.
Then you become the Golden Boy, right? Like when you kind of splinter off by yourself, you were basically going to be the Golden Boy, Dan Spivey.
Yeah, they had to do something with me. You know, since I was 6'6", blonde hair, which if I had it to do all over again, I would have never been there with blonde hair and wearing anything to do with yellow, you know, because, you know, it just, they had one guy over there that looked like that. And I don't know what I was thinking, you know. So that was a big mistake. Should have come back with Waylon Mercy, but I had to come 10, 15 years later.
Right. With that, though, obviously, Golden Boy, is it kind of basically saying you're like next in line to be the next Hulk Hogan, like you're the Golden Boy, or is that not even like on the right path?
Nothing ever it was told to me, but I knew that had to be in the back of their mind looking back. I think it was more like that Hogan was thinking that I was trying to do that, but he didn't want anything. He didn't come close to looking like him or anything. It's something I learned later on in life and in the business. I should have been more like a Bruiser Brody technique or something. Waylon Mercy would have been great, but that was a little too early for Waylon Mercy.
Yeah. Yep.
Those days. But if I had any kind of business sense, I would have been just totally opposite and worked against him instead of trying to work with him. It would have been so much better for me. And coming there as the heel and working with the top guys would have been good for me, but I didn't think of it. Nobody told me.
And you seem like you could have been a prototypical like Hogan opponent, being like a big guy, and you know what I mean. Like he seemed to make a lot of money against big guys at that point during that era.
Yeah, he made a lot of those guys rich. I just, of course, you think about things when it's all over and said and done with, but that was just a thought.
What did you think about the Hulkster? Did you get along with him, or because of the Golden Boy stuff, not so much?
Well, we've always gotten along. I knew him. We knew each other before wrestling. He used to play in a rock and roll band, and I used to be the bouncer at some of the clubs he played in. So we knew each other for a while.
I remember that old Roddy Piper joke that he was playing at Tootsie's Bar and Grill, he used to say. I don't know if that's an actual real place, though. I don't know if you were a bouncer at Tootsie's, or is that just a made-up Piper line?
No, that's the first I heard of that. That's pretty good, though.
So that era, obviously, Hogan's killing it. Vince, you're taking WWF is taking over the world, but there's a great story, and it kind of came to light really with Dark Side of the Ring, but it was always like an internet thing. It was always in shoot interviews and stuff. You were one of the toughest guys in the locker room. Is that a fact? Is that true? You were like a guy not to be messed with.
Well, that's what they say. I'm nice, gentle, easygoing Dan. I don't know whether they got that vicious rumor going around. I don't know.
Well, I guess it is true with the Adrian Adonis, right? I mean, that fight you did, you did knock him out, I guess, so to speak. You did kind of take him clean out, right? Or is that a little bit exaggerated?
No, that's the story you hear about that are pretty true. Yeah.
How did it go down? What happened with Adrian? He was just, mouthing off, or like, what was he trying to do? What was he trying to accomplish?
Adrian was a bully. He had a reputation of being a tough guy, and I guess from what I hear, he was. I mean, in the Funk's territory up in Texas, he used to challenge people if they could stay in the ring with him for 5 minutes. He gave him $1,000 or something, and he beat up a lot of guys doing that. So he had a reputation of being a tough guy, and he was getting ready to work with Hogan doing the Beautiful Adonis or whatever his gimmick was. And so they were feeding him underneath guys, and he was being really stiff with everybody and cussing them out in the ring and just being, beating them up. And so I knew this, and I worked with him, a television taping or something in Canada, and he was pulling the same crap with me. And luckily, after the match, Davey Boy and Dynamite and Scott McGee and some of the other guys got me out of the building, took me to the hotel. And so the next night, we're in Flint, Michigan, and George the Animal Steel was supposed to work with Adrian, and George got sick. He was in the hospital or something. And so Pat Patterson came to me and told me, well, you work with Adrian. And I said, I don't want to work with him, you know. And Pat comes back, he says, Adrian don't work with you either, but Vince says y'all are working together. I said, okay. And so, you know, the same crap happened again, and it pissed me off. And so I changed the finish to the match. He was supposed to go over, and I said, he's not going over tonight. I told the referee that. He said, this isn't the finish. I said, I changed the finish. And so, you know, see, those guys didn't know that I'd already lived another life before I got to the WWE. It's, you know, I didn't break into the business until I was 34. And everybody thought I was a lot younger than that, you know, and so, but they didn't know that I used to be in a pretty rough crowd in Florida. And I'm sure it took everybody by surprise, you know, but they learned real quick, you know, I didn't play that, you know, kind of games and stuff, you know, so never had any problems other than that. Maybe in Japan I did, but they soon learned, you know.
Absolutely. So Adrian attacked you backstage after you changed the finish, or what happened?
Oh, well, he was knocked out in the ring. I told the referee that I changed the finish, and I said, just to DQ me. So he came into the locker room, and he tried to leg dive me. And when he did, I would hit him, you know, and each time I hit him, I split him open. And, you know, he was pretty bloodied up. But, you know, not much more.
I think it was Bret Hart that was talking about it, saying like Adonis was super tough. He used to beat up all the other guys. He goes, but then you meet the guy that, you know, can kick your ass, and like that changes the complexion of everything. It's like you could beat certain guys, but you don't pick on like Dan Spivey. I think he's basically was like the moral of the story. He's like, you could beat up this guy, this guy, but let's leave Dan Spivey alone. Like that, he's basically kind of intimating you were one of the tough guys. That's one guy you're probably not going to win against, basically.
Yeah.
You agree with that statement, though. You agree with Bret. That's probably accurate.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate.
After that, does Vince fire Adonis, or did he get mad at you? Like, what happens with you guys and Vince?
So the next day, I was told you need to call Vince, and so I called Vince, and he says, I can't have you beating up my talent. I said, Vince, he wasn't very talented. He kind of laughed, but then he said, Dan, I'm serious. If you do that again, I'm going to let you go. I said, okay. But he wasn't very talented, Vince. So that's all was said.
Did you stay much longer after that?
No, not really. So, no, about a month later, I was let go.
I gotcha. That was when you got injured, and then he was paying you, and then.
Oh no, this is long after it. This is before, you know.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
Vince obviously was not happy with either one of you guys, right? That was going on.
Oh, I don't know what he said to Adrian. I don't know. Adrian had to take like 2 weeks off.
Man, crazy. Just crazy to think of all the stuff, because now there's cell phones and social media, but it's crazy the stuff we don't know about that happened, right? Back then, I mean, whew. And you guys were on the road way more.
Back then. That would have been terrible having cell phones back then. I don't know, that would have been bad.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of guys would be arrested like pretty quickly with all the stuff you guys got going on.
Or divorce would have came earlier.
When you look at it too, the schedule was crazy, right? How many days are you on the road at that point, especially with Vince?
Oh man, several times 90 days of being on the road. You know, the hardest thing about being on the road is keeping clean clothes. It's hard keeping laundry done.
Yeah, you don't even think about that, but that's true. Like, because if you're on the road 300 days a year, how the heck do you get laundry done? And then you're traveling, and then you got to get your car, and then you got to get to the airport. Then you're only home maybe a day. So yeah, it's crazy.
And then on Saturday and Sunday doing double shots.
Yeah, true. It's just crazy. And nowadays, with wrestling nowadays, they've kind of gotten rid of house shows for the most part. So they're really not traveling even close to as much as you guys were.
No, they nowhere near as they have as easy compared to what we did. You know, we were doing TV too. Monday and Tuesday was TV, so that was an all-day affair. Not making any money. We only got like $50 for 2 days, and you know, it just part of the job. You know, it was tough. You know, you do TVs till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, Mondays and Tuesdays, and then back on the road.
Do you follow any current wrestling? Do you keep up with that at all or no?
Lately, I have been. I like watching maybe the first introductions. I watch just get a kind of a feel of what's going on. Some of it is I wouldn't be able to work probably if they if I had to work the way they're working now, because you have to be a gymnast almost to be able to work there now. I mean, all the flips and flops and all that, you know, it's just crazy. And, you know, big guys can't do that kind of stuff. You know, they have a couple of big guys up there that I could have a good match with. You know, Drew McIntyre and what's the other guy? Sheamus. Sheamus is another big guy that works stiff, and you know, but Kevin Owens, but you know, those guys do some things that I never went up to the top rope. You know, my boots went that high. You know, I just can't get up that high. And, some of the crap they do is just crazy.
It is like that completely different game, if you will. I mean, the guys, just the crazy bumps, the acrobatics. It is like way different. Maybe even a guy like Gunther. I feel like if you've seen him, he could you and him could have some good matches. He works pretty stiff.
Who's that?
Gunther. He's the champ, if you will. He's the big Austrian.
Yeah, and of course there's Randy Orton. He's
oh yeah, yep.
He's very talented, believable type guy. You know, we work so hard to try and make things look real. You know.
Yeah.
And you know, as long as you didn't bust somebody open or break something, you know, it was good. But nowadays, you know, everything's telegraphed and choreographed, and it's just unbelievable. And you know, it's just different from what we did, and that's the only good thing I can say about it. It's different time. So I guess it's people are paying money to go watch it. So what do I know?
Yeah, making more money than ever. $1 billion company now. Crazy how much money they're making.
These guys make more money in a month than I made in a career.
Yeah, it is crazy the money that they're making. And for less dates.
Yeah, no kidding. It's just they have no idea how lucky they are.
So you mentioned working stiff, right? So was All Japan, was that your favorite kind of organization to work with just because of that style and how they worked?
Yes. And I think back on it, I should have never left Japan. I should have stayed there the whole friggin' time but Waylon Mercy would have never been born. So, you know, but working in Japan was very good for me. It was. Got to work with some great guys. Terry Gordy and Stan Hansen and Dr. Death, Steve Williams. We had some hellacious tag team matches. If you ever get a chance, watch it, because we had some great matches together, the four of us. And, you know, Terry and Doc left us way too soon. They were hell of a workers, you know, and I had Stan as a partner. And, yeah, it was good.
Man, All Japan in the 90s, the best. I mean, just unbelievable matches. And you and Hansen, forget about it. Talking about, you know, two stiff, tough guys. Doesn't get much better than you two.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. And working against Doc and Terry was just, it was fun. It was so much fun. It wasn't I didn't consider it work. It was just going out and playing with the boys. You know, it was good.
What kind of attracts you to the style? Just like the fact that it's strong style, it's stiff. You know what I mean? It's much more like a sport.
What was that again?
What like attracts you to that Japanese style? Just because it's like more like a sport, just the way the presentation is of it, the actual strong style of it.
Well, you know, if you hit a guy in the States and it was a little stiff, they start crying. Over there, you know, as long as you didn't bust somebody open or break a bone or something, it was good. And, you know, we tried our best to make it look real. And, you know, if you didn't do that, you wouldn't stay there. They would put up with it, you know, and because the fans were really into it and they knew the difference. And so they were accustomed to a certain style, and either you produced it or you didn't stay. I know a lot of guys didn't want to come back, and maybe a few of them that did want to come back, they wouldn't take them back because their work wasn't stiff enough. But the biggest thing, guys didn't come back, you know.
And they paid well too, right? In Japan at that point, I mean, you guys were drawing huge houses.
Oh yeah, they paid good, and I always paid you $100 bills, nice and crispy.
Did you get along with Giant Baba?
Of course I did. He's the boss.
I feel like it would be culture shock, but there's so many guys over there, right? That maybe it's not so much culture shock, like living there and being there for those tours.
Well, I don't know. You know, I don't know about wanting to live over there 365 days out of the year, but you know, I stayed over there in between tours, you know, for a while, once in a while. But it was always good to come home. It really was.
I feel like there was so much good, not only American talent, but there was so much good Japanese talent over there too. I mean, Kawada, Misawa, Kobashi, even a little, you know, prior to that, Jumbo Tsuruta, obviously, and all those. There was like, man, it was everybody over there. It just was like maybe one of the best rosters ever.
I worked in the main event my first tour. I had no clue anything was going on. There was nobody that was the gaijins, the American gaijins. There was none of us had ever been to Japan before in our lives, and you know, so we're just winging it. We don't have nowhere to eat. You know, it's just all brand new to us. And I had a match with Tenryu, and that guy beat the hell out of me in that match. Jesus
Another
Christ.
awesome guy. Yep.
You know who I'm talking about, Tenryu?
Oh yes. One of the best. Yeah, he's awesome too.
He broke me into Japan style really quick. My chest was just black and blue the next day. And luckily it was on the last night because he taught me a serious lesson about, you know, about how to work in Japan. And I went on and had some great matches with him. You know, he left the company, started his own thing, but it was a pleasure working with him. It really was.
You know, you didn't mention Johnny Ace at all. Is he not high on the list as far as guys you work with in Japan?
Are you kidding me? Johnny Ace as one of the top guys working in Japan. That's because he had his nose so far stuck up Mrs. Baba's ass, you know. The guy, you know, you get on the bus, everybody calls Stooge, and it didn't bother him, you know, because it was true. He was
right.
He was. It does what he did best: is suck up to Mrs. Baba. So, no, as far as one of the top talent, no way. There was, don't get me started on.
Go there, come on, Johnny Ace.
There was a time when he came over as my partner when I was just getting started over there. I brought him over as my partner. And we're having a tag team match against one of the top teams over there. And Johnny is green, but he's been there a week or two. And as soon as I tag him in, he'd tag me back in, and he'd do like one thing and then tag me back in. And, so I told him, I said, you're going to have to stay in the ring a little longer than that. And so he kept doing it. So after one of our matches, the referee, Joe, came and got, and he says, y'all need to go downstairs. Papa wants to talk to you. So we go downstairs, and Bob was speaking in Japanese to Joe, and he's bitching about, and rightfully so, complaining about Johnny's tagging me in all the time. He's not staying in the ring working. And so Giant Baba told him, you take a $500 cut and pay, or you work with the green guys every day. And see, we get there, the arena, 4 or 5 hours early, and that's when the young boys do the training in the ring and stuff. And so they made him work out with the young boys for quite a while, years.
Gotcha. So not a fan of Johnny Ace, the kiss ass, if you will. You're not a fan.
He's all right, but he was a kiss ass, and then he wasn't one of their top. He goes around telling everybody he's one of the top boys. It's not true. He wasn't.
Yeah, he's no Stan Hansen or Terry Gordy or Steve Williams. Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, their boots or their job.
Right. Besides Waylon Mercy and Old Japan, do a lot of people, like, when they bring up, do they talk about skyscrapers? Is that something a lot of people will bring up to you, like as far as being in WCW and being in the skyscrapers?
Yeah, but Waylon Mercy takes, people want to talk more about Waylon Mercy than they do the skyscrapers. I had some guys calling it the sky crappers. So, no, I mean, Sid got hurt, and that kind of hurt things, and then, Mark came in. Mark was a great partner, and but they just weren't doing anything with us. And we were working with the Road Warriors all the time and putting them over, and they just weren't going to do anything with us. I don't know why, but they wouldn't. I mean, we worked with Steiner Brothers, we worked with the Legion of Doom, Road Warriors, all their top people, but, we never won, never put us over. They never did anything to draw money, and so I got an offer to go back. Stan called me, you want to come back to Japan? I said, yes. And so I went back to Japan, and look what happened with Mark. They told Mark that he'd never be able to draw a penny in this business. He probably turned out one of the greatest wrestlers of all time,
Say the least. Yep.
It shows you they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, big time. Did you think that he was going to become as big of a star or no?
Not as big as he became, but yes, I knew he would be a good hand for sure. He was a great guy, he's real quiet. And, the guy, I thought he was green, but come to find out after years and years, he had more experience than I did. He worked overseas and he had a deal with Brody in Texas.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it when I found out that. I said, you told me you were green. He said, I never told you anything. I just didn't talk. He did. So, it's a big rib.
Yeah, that's great. So as we head towards the wind down here and head towards the finish, what would be like your absolute favorite promotion? Would it have been All Japan? That's like your favorite time in the business? That's the best promotion you've ever worked for?
Yes. No doubt. No doubt. And I worked with the best guys. Dot, Terry, Stan. There was Doug Furness and Dan Crawford, the Malenkos. All those guys could work. I just mentioned the guys that I mainly work, but the Malenkos, Dean and Jody, and the Rock and Roll Express came over a couple of times, and they, those little guys took some beatings, but they kept coming back, and it was just a lot of talent, and everybody got along too. You know, it was you had any differences, you settled in the ring usually, but there wasn't much of that going on. Very respectful, and we watched after each other, and it was just it was a clique. It was, you know, I hate using that term, but you know, it was a big bond between guys that loved what we were doing.
So what would you say if somebody said Dan Spivey, Waylon Mercy, like the legacy of your career? If somebody wants to like wrap it up and you know, say something about you, what do you think is the legacy of Dan Spivey, aka Waylon Mercy?
Oh gosh, you know, a guy not to mess with, a guy who has a lot of respect for other people, and he demands respect.
What is next for you? What do you got coming up?
Got the book coming out, you know, and so me and my wife are working on that. You know, it's looking forward to it, and hopefully, you know, there'll be requests and people wanting to get a hold of me and knowing how I got sober, you know. And I'm sure we'll throw some wrestling in there, you know, and I'm sure Waylon Mercy will come up.
Oh, yeah.
And we're getting ready to do more conventions. I don't know if you know this or not, but over the years since I've been retired, I've only done a handful of the conventions. And the only reason I went to them then was to go and say hello to the guys. But we're going to start doing a lot more of those that come out, and we'll be there signing autographs and answering questions about, you know, the book. So, you know, I'm making myself more available, and looking forward to it. It really is. And I didn't know I was in such demand, but the way I understand it, people have been wanting to know what I've been up to and like to see me. So we're going to give them the opportunity to see Dan Spivey and Waylon Mercy. You know what I mean?
Love that. Nice. Do you have a working title for the book?
Yes, The Dangerous Truth.
I like that. A little dangerous Dan Spivey in there, a little bit of obviously what you're going to be telling the truth, obviously, in the book. So I like that spin on it. Where could everybody find and follow you as far as, like, are you on social media? Like, where could everybody, if they wanted to get in touch with you?
I'm on Facebook. You can reach me there. And I'll have quite a few more outlets to have coming up. I just haven't done it yet, but you can find me on Facebook and you can go from there.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. Mr. Spivey, aka the legendary Waylon Mercy. Thank you so much for all the time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, John.